Welcome to the Rogue L&D podcast, allowing you to meet some of the brilliant folk driving people performance and development forward in an informal and human way. My name's Tom Bailey, award-winning L&D leader and passionate maverick for all things development. Join me as I ask questions of some of the industry's most innovative and interesting people. All right, welcome to the Rogue L&D podcast. I am delighted to introduce Erica Farmer, all the way from the West Country in the UK. Great to have you joining us. How are you?
I'm good, Tom. I'm really good. Thank you so much for asking me to be part of this as well. And of course, for Michelle for recommending me as well.
Yes.
So it's always nice to speak to fellow L&Ders on the other side of the world. And we were just chatting offline, I'm a little bit blurry-eyed because I've just come back from Florida as well. So I'm a little bit jet-lagged. But, good times on the way up to Christmas and all the rest of it.
UK Sydney time zone this time of year is an unhealthy 11-hour difference. So there is neither of us are winning in this. Erica, would you mind introducing yourself? Tell us about how amazing you are and all the things that you get involved in.
Oh, bless you. Thank you. I am the co-founder and business director of Quantum Rise Talent Group and more recently the founder of ericafarmer.ai. So my background is 25 years corporate L&D. I've been lucky enough to work with some of the UK's largest brands like British Gas, LV, Specsavers, Virgin, typically in kind of head of L&D, head of talent, head of apprenticeship roles. I've been running my business with my business partner, Hayley, just coming up 7 years now, which whenever I say that, it still surprises me that someone's put up with me in business for 7 years. Bless her, my work wife, Hayley. So we work with clients, particularly on things like future skills, more recently in the last 3 years, AI. I was lucky enough to do a TEDx in 22, which kind of opened the door to a lot of that stuff. ChatGPT came to the market the month afterwards. So we then started our podcast, AI for the Average Joe. So we're lucky enough to really partner with clients to support more kind of L&D and HR functions, what it means to them in terms of skills, mindset, and really getting their workforce enabled and engaged.
I think it's really interesting. A lot of us professional L&D folk do make the move into consulting externally from the corporate side. How did you manage that? I mean, 7 years ago, I know, but I'm sure you remember.
Yeah, for sure. So I always had that thing in my mind, and I always knew I was going to work for myself in some capacity. It was always a bit of an airy-fairy goal that I had. And I think if I look back now, I put that down to, I've always had quite an entrepreneurial flair. I like to take a bit of a risk. I think that's to do with my neurodivergence, partly. And I like to do things different and kind of push the envelope on stuff. So that was always there within my DNA, I think. And then between leaving Virgin and joining Specsavers, I literally had a revelation one Sunday morning when I sat up bolt right in bed and thought, today I am going to set up a business. It just kind of came to me like one of those, you hear people talk about that lightning moment, right? And within a week, I had my first business set up with a company called Welcome to Learning Limited. And I was making 2-minute training videos for clients and reaching out to my previous network, which was very lucky. And then actually the pandemic hit. We did a lot more in the virtual training space, which obviously took off incredibly well. And I was doing all the sales in the front end of the business. Hayley, my now business partner, she's an incredible virtual facilitator. So I was subcontracting most of my work to Hayley. It worked really well. She'd just been made redundant. I joined Specsavers, but to be fair, wasn't really giving it the crack of the whip I should have done because I was running my own business alongside it, which was far more exciting. And then we kind of said, like, a year later, should we do this properly? Which is where Quantum Rise was born. And we've been very lucky to work with some amazing clients ever since then. And had a great corporate career, but I always felt like a black sheep. And I think many neurodivergent people will explain themselves as the odd one out a little bit. And I always felt that because I was the person that didn't really get the politics, didn't read between the lines, struggled to understand why people spoke the way they did, all that kind of jargon and kind of weird things. Now I can look back and smile and laugh on it, but actually at the time I found it really difficult and challenging and was often kind of reprimanded for not picking up on things that I should have done. So for me, kind of working for myself or working in partnership with Hayley and choosing the amazing clients that we work with and taking more of that entrepreneurial risk in terms of well, if we don't pay our mortgage, nobody else is going to. That kind of feels a lot more comfortable for me. So that consulting external supplier piece, I feel like I'm at home. I feel like I've unplugged from the Matrix, for want of another kind of geeky sci-fi reference.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. It's a different kind of role working externally, as you know.
Yeah.
But there is stuff you give up as well. There's always a trade-off with both sides of the fence. What kind of projects do you get involved in? What's the kind of work that you really specialise in? I mean, as in personally.
Yeah, so I do a lot of professional speaking. I spend about 50% of my time in client conferences, client events, wider events, talent events, L&D events, really getting people kind of excited around what artificial intelligence actually is and how we can think about that from a human perspective. So I talk about metaphors and storytelling, and it's okay to kind of have that AI guilt and that AI shame that many people have. And just kind of thinking it's all right to feel how you do about stuff. And we do a lot of kind of follow-on workshops and things like that with that as well. So I spend probably half my time in that professional speaking space. And then the other half of my time is business development and really kind of getting the business in for Quantum Rise, whether that's skills, training, speaking, consultancy. And I really enjoy that. I'm a natural salesperson, so I enjoy the hunt of the sale. I'm quite competitive, so I love closing business. I get a real buzz from it, which is lucky, really, because when you're a small business, like you said, there is some trade-offs. You've got to,
you have to be.
enjoy selling.
Yeah.
So luckily I do. And then Hayley's a great deliverer in terms of managing our delivery partners. She operationalizes everything for clients. So actually, it works quite well from that perspective. I think I've run a business on my own, which I enjoyed, but I did feel a little bit lonely. But running a business with a business partner who is the yin to your yang is really where the sweet spot is. And you're right, there is, I guess, a trade-off from being employed from a security perspective. But right now, I wouldn't change things for the world. I wouldn't prefer that security over having to report to somebody and having to play that corporate game anymore. And don't get me wrong, we have some challenging clients and I have to chase for payments and kind of worry sometimes if that invoice is going to get paid and all that kind of stuff. Again, I wouldn't give up any of that for the highs that we have in business.
It's like we could be playing a bingo card here, because there's two things that you've already raised that I know are real stress points for individual consultants, which is one, making sure you get paid and paid on time.
Yeah.
Because normally we're not big businesses. We're not, Atlassian. We kind of need that cash flow coming in. But oddly, in big businesses, you get pushed to the end of the line. Yeah. You get the worst terms. And then the second thing is business development. If you go into L&D and you think, oh, yeah, great. Sorry, if you go out on your own in L&D and you think, oh, great, yes, brilliant. I'm just going to spend all my time just facilitating, and I'm going to run workshops. I'm going to change the world of, sales leadership. And then you get there and you're like, oh, this is a lot of sales. I'm always business developing. And it is quite a rude awakening.
Yeah, it is. And I think a lot of us have that moment when we recognise that there's going to be a pipeline from your network if you've developed a good network. And I'm grateful and thankful that a lot of our business comes from people I've worked with previously, or, recommendations, and then they've moved on to another organisation and then brought us in there as well. So typically 50% of our business is through that. But that's not going to sustain the organisation long term. You can't rely just on your network. You have to be active on LinkedIn. You have to market. Yeah. You have to be clear on your message. You have to stand out from the crowd. You have to have an opinion. You just can't be vanilla on this stuff. You can't just go out with the beige XYZ. And you've got to get the balance in regards to sharing enough of you and being vulnerable and who you are and being okay with that. And I'm an oversharer, to be honest. But I know some people find that really difficult as well. So you're right. Like, if people are thinking about taking that step into consultancy or self-employment, it's probably worth doing a bit of a self-assessment against those areas of business development, marketing, finances, having those difficult conversations with clients if you don't want to work with them, or if there's a change request, or they're saying, sorry, you can't get paid until 90 days or whatever it is. Like, that's quite a difficult place to be in as well. And a lot of consultants take a more submissive type role on that and just go with it. And actually, I'm probably opposite. I get a little bit punchy with stuff like that because it just doesn't feel fair if you've done the work, but then you're not getting paid for 60, 90 days. And don't get me wrong, we put it in our terms and conditions that we're net 30. But when you're up against, a big organisation and they go 60 days, 90 days, there's not really much you can do about it.
No, there isn't. I mean, there's some, if anyone's listening and who's interested in moving into their own space as a consultant, there's some real gold in what you just said around don't be beige, don't be vanilla, especially at the rise of AI. Now, this gets us on to my big question around what are you really passionate about? What's your soapbox? Let's get the soapbox out. What is it that really excites you and is your crusade?
Yeah, what, in the AI space or just in life?
Well, no.
Because I got plenty. How long you got?
We got plenty of time. But let's start in the L&D piece because I'm assuming it's going to be AI. But hey, whatever it is you want to talk about. But yes, let's start with work and then we'll move on to Marvel.
Sounds good. So my soapbox at the moment is around AI. It can be so many different things to so many different people if you let it, right? So what I struggle with is when I see people on LinkedIn, for example, talk about productivity or efficiency or AI can't do this, AI this, it's good for this, it's not good for that. You shouldn't outsource your thinking. It's going to de-skill us. Like, people very much put this kind of technology in a box. And that unfortunately drives the message that it's just another change request. It's just another business transformation. It's just another piece of technology. AI isn't that. I talk a lot about we all have our individual AI dividend, right? So, for example, my AI dividend is I can run a small business with the use of AI technology. I can automate parts of my job that I don't like doing as a company director, such as crunching the numbers on a spreadsheet. What I do love is looking at the narrative that gives me, and which tells me what does my cash flow forecast look like? Where can I spend some money? What kind of clients do I need to work with? What kind of work do we need to be doing? How do we price our products going forward? We're increasing our prices next year for the first time in 3 or 4 years because we have more insight in terms of what that would look like and what clients are looking for in the market.
Amazing.
So not just that from a business perspective, but someone who is neurodivergent, so I'm going through the pathway for ADHD adult diagnosis, having been diagnosed as a child, but I also have fibromyalgia, which means my energy is very limited on a day-to-day basis, particularly if I've been traveling and borrowing energy from the future days and I come back into the office and I'm absolutely zonked. So my AI dividend allows me to still run my business and do what I want and do more of what I love doing in my job, whilst kind of taking some time off and resting and relaxing and spending time with people that I love. I've just come back from Florida for a week, with my best friend, for example. My business is still standing because we are using generative AI in a way that does help us with the mental load, does help us automate tasks, does remind us of things, does support our training design and learning design, and does help us kind of create, bids for clients when they want a request for proposal, and just all of that stuff that traditionally we think, we need to do the hard slog, right? Or it's, it's cheating, or it's plagiarism, or it's this, or it's that. I guess I'm getting to the point, Tom, is the older I get, the more I realise that we don't get to the end of our time, and I'm not spiritual or religious, but say you're at the end of your time and you go to the pearly gates or whatever it is that you remember or that you buy into, and you look at St. Peter, he's not going to give you a medal for the hardest life lived. Right? It's not about the struggle and the workload and I worked really hard and all that stuff that actually probably as a geriatric millennial we grew up believing in education and from our parents. Actually, life should be enjoyable and fun and give us the time and space and energy to do cool stuff and experience amazing things, whatever that amazing thing is for you. And for me, AI is part of the puzzle that enables me to do that. So whenever I go back to the AI is not this, AI is not that, we shouldn't use it as a thought partner and kind of all this, don't get me wrong, everyone's got their own point of view. Of course they have, and everything's valid. For me, if I can outsource something to AI, I don't see it as cheating. I see it as kind of just like making my life a little bit easier.
I love it. I love the framing of that. It's so clear. It's so helpful. And I hope it helps people when they're listening. Certainly it helps me reframing, because we all know that AI is really useful. And as you rightly point out, it's a whole mindset shift. It's so massive. Yeah. And it's interesting in organizations, I do hear when people talk about, oh, we need to drive AI adoption, or we need to introduce more AI or whatever. And I think if IT lead that, no offense to any IT listeners, but when IT lead that, it normally becomes like they're rolling out a program. They're rolling out another, and it's so much bigger than that. So thank you. That's very, very helpful, and very, very useful framing of how we should view it. And I agree with you. Life is for living. We get so stressed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And again, another point you made, the guilt. We all feel, I used AI on that. Almost like you need to admit it. AI did help me on this.
Yeah, it's just like, I no doubt we will get there, right? We're just scratching the surface with this. And to your point around our friends in IT or transformation, or typically the product owner, right? They're the people that have gone to the board and committed to, 90% adoption within 90 days of Microsoft Copilot or whatever it might be. And then they come to HR and L&D when it's 20% uptake rather than 90% uptake, going, what's going on? It's such a good piece of kit. Why isn't everybody using it? And then HR and L&D typically go, well, what kind of engagement have we done? Or do we need to do? What's the messaging? And that's not our friends at IT's bag.
Yeah.
That's our bag. So as L&Ders and HRers, we need to really, and I've been speaking to some really great heads of HR recently, particularly in the retail sector, who are like, I'm not going to wait for my chief transformation officer to come to me to say, what's the behavioural framework or the capability requirement or the enablement plan or skills training, whatever it might be. I want to be taking that to the table as a people first strategy. And I'm like, yes, that's what I'm talking about right there. A lot of my clients today have been on the story of we haven't got 90% uptake in 90 days. We've got 20% uptake in 90 days. Why is that? And my first question is, well, what have you done for hearts and minds? That's the piece that if you don't get sorted up front, because of all the negative narrative around AI and, Skynet becoming self-aware and the Terminator and the Matrix with the human...
Skynet, great reference.
And I mention it in every webinar, tongue-in-cheek, but there's always somebody that mentions Skynet. But even that, like we're seeing, Elon Musk showing off his Optimus androids with going to be one in every home and all this kind of stuff. And it's going to have Grok AI in it. It's not that too far of a jump for people to fill in the gaps when they don't understand how this stuff works.
Yeah.
So if you don't do the hearts and minds stuff, it derails the adoption and, why people don't use it because of the fear, because of the shame, because of the guilt, or... You keep telling me data's so important and data protection when it comes to AI that actually I'm so scared of putting the wrong thing into it, I'm not going to use it at all. And we hear that quite a lot with clients as well. So you have to, we all know this in L&D, we talk about this all the time. We have to do hearts, minds, mindset, skill set, as well as technology, right? And for some reason... that's not always happened, but that's okay because that's keeping us in business. So.
Just as you were talking about the fear, it reminds me of... do you remember the Millennium Bug in 2000 where planes were going to fall from the sky?
Exactly.
Everything would break, and then Skynet would also take over.
Didn't Will Smith even do a song about it or something?
I don't know, but it turned out okay. It didn't really change anything. Anyway, all right. Look, as we're talking about great stuff, let's concentrate on really positive stuff. Tell me the best L&D that you've ever seen or been part of, or the best kind of learning and development example that you like to reference.
It probably ties back to the example I was just giving around hearts and minds. So when I was heading up operational training for LV, we had a large change transformation project around a new workflow system across the life and pensions business. I've probably been in role for 18 months.
We should probably say LV is a financial services company. Right.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And it's a mutual as well. So, or it was a mutual. I think it's been bought out the last couple of years, but very much kind of not your typical transactional financial services company, but very much everything really was the customer at the heart. It was the green heart that was the brand and the logo, because it was a mutual, because, you know, if you owned a life assurance policy or a pension, you effectively were like a partner of the organisation, and that did inform the strategy, which was why it was such an amazing company to work for. And we had this workflow system that needed to be deployed across 3 sites. And typically, you know, what would have happened before is there would have been like, let's get you in front of a sandpit or a dummy system or something like that and get you kind of doing the keystrokes for the new system and things like that. I just knew there was something else that needed to happen. And there was a lot of people in this business that had been acquired over a period of years, where they joined a company and then been acquired. So there was a lot of tenure for a lot of kind of the people doing the work, either the call center agents or the administrators or the claims handlers or whatever it might be. And what came with that is quite a resistance to change, because they'd kind of been doing the same job, even though via different organisations, the same job for quite a long period of time. I think the average tenure was at least 9 or 10 years in these roles, which is quite unusual. And I remember sitting down with Emma Jower-Ive, who was my director at the time. And Emma got it. She got the people side of things. And we came across this kind of change for champions type approach, type strategy, where, yes, of course, we've got to teach people how to use the new workflow system and what the customer journey was through that and what their role was to play in it. But actually, we needed people just to get their resistance out, talk about change, talk about whether they were excited or whether they were worried or whatever it was. So we built a 2-hour session up front, which was very conversational, very non-threatening, very kind of open to kind of, how are you feeling about stuff? And I guess that, for me, is probably some of the foundational piece to where I am with HR and what we deliver now with the AI for the Average Joe program, and why I understand that hearts and minds piece of just letting people digest change and then be able to articulate in a psychologically safe way why they feel the way that they feel. That's how I know that's so important, to then not derail your skills and your hands-on stuff going forwards. So we built this really nice program. And I remember, like, some of it was even like, right, you are now the project manager. And we built an exercise where they had a certain budget of 2 million or whatever it was, and they needed to decide how they would roll out this workflow system. But we deliberately built it that they didn't quite have enough money, so they needed to start making decisions in regards to what they would drop and what they would keep and things like that. And that, coupled with the time up front around how they feel about change, kind of really built in some empathy and understanding around some of the challenges of the project as well. So they had time to think about change, time to understand some of the challenges around what it means to a business to implement change, and then actually go on and do the hands-on piece for the work. And that, for me, was probably one of the best pieces of work I ever headed up, because it ticked all of those boxes. Did we still get resistance? Of course we did. Did we still get people that didn't like it? Of course we did. You can't, please all the people all the time. But that wrapped around with selected change agents, change champions that represented each of the functions. So underwriting had Mark, for example, who was a change champion. People specifically selected because they could communicate to people and influence people. They got it. They bought into the company vision on change. They were given skills to facilitate training and present in the right way. That as a wraparound, it just landed so well, and the feedback was really good. And it just kind of reminds me that we always need to start with that human first piece. And I guess that was my apprenticeship, if you want, in delivering training and learning in that way.
Yeah, I love it. I love it because it is, sometimes we talk about human-centered design, and that's got a bit of baggage, but just literally the meaning of those words, human-centered design, we're appreciating that it's humans who are doing this. Humans aren't robots, right? They have feelings and thoughts, and they're not always great with change. So let's make provision for that. That's brilliant. Yeah, excellent. Something to be proud of. Always good to, be part of those massive transformational programs.
And, part of that is being grateful and thankful to have an operations director like Emma who got it, and she could kind of battle some of the stakeholder challenges around the time off the job, which was extra per person. but she could influence it at high level, because again, if you don't have that person doing that senior stakeholder management, things can fall flat pretty quickly, right? But also the culture of LV as an organization, understanding that yes, our customers are super important in the heart of what we do, but also our people as well. They got that. So the support that I had around me made that 10 times better for me to go and do what I needed to do.
Yeah, nice. I see that you talk with your hands a lot, which is great, very expressive. Do you have a favourite hand gesture?
Ever since I don't know why, I used to go to Comic-Con in San Diego, and I started this thing in photos of just doing this, like, like
cheesy. Yeah, nice.
Hi, konnichiwa. I don't know why, and I've just done it ever since. So you'll see pictures of me in Disneyland last week, like, hi.
So would it be fair to say it started ironically, but then became normalised?
It just became a thing. Yeah, for sure.
Nice.
So yeah, people just find it funny.
Yeah, okay.
So when people find it funny, you end up doing it more, right?
Yeah.
So it's not even like a peace sign. It's just like a hi for photos.
Yeah,
So that's
nice. No, that's good. I mean, I'm down with that. I mean, yeah. How about sharing your worst experience or the biggest fail that you've had in your career in L&D? That's just taken it down a notch. But it could be it could be good. You might take it up again.
Do you know what? I really believe that. This is going to sound a bit cheese, right? But I'm going to go with it. It's the kind of who moved my cheese, the lobster that's uncomfortable before it sheds its shell and gets a new shell, and all that kind of whatever analogy or book we read in L&D. I always believe that our growth is accelerated just after a tough time. And I remember, again, I'll go back to LV. The reason I left that role was because there was a reorg, and unfortunately I just couldn't bond with my new line manager. And she had a real corporate clear view on how she wanted the function running. I'd been running the function for a period of time, so I was quite change resistant. If I look back and reflect now, I was kind of quite protective. This was mine, and this is what the stakeholders knew me for, and it was my baby, and we were doing really well. And stop trying to make it more corporate or more this or more that. And she probably, it would be fair to say, wasn't the most empathetic person in the world, and had like a very clear view on how politics should be navigated. It was almost quite toxic in a way. Me, who struggled to read between the lines, who struggled to pick things up at times, I just think we just didn't connect. And because of that, I was pretty much managed out to the point where I had to give my notice, which I was devastated for, because I loved working for that company. I was in the head of L&D role that I wanted to be in. I delivered some amazing stuff. I had a lot of champions and senior stakeholders, and I got on well with my team. Some of them work for me now, actually, as delivery partners. And I probably went into petulant child in terms of my behaviour, because it wasn't fair. How dare you come and change this and do this? And can't you see that I've done this? And it's unfair because you're not recognising my neurodivergence. And I look back on that now, and I can recognise how I would have navigated that differently now. It goes back to that kind of hindsight's a wonderful thing, because in the moment it just felt really, really unfair. Yeah. And if you are neurodivergent, particularly ADHD, you have a sensitivity to fairness and justness. It's a really important battle for you to fight because of perhaps being misjudged, previously in your life in regards to your intention versus your behavior and your communication and this kind of stuff. All of this experience has helped me learn about the person that I am now. And, I've worked some of this stuff through in therapy and reflections and conversations. And that's why I've gone for my adult ADHD diagnosis now, because I'm all right with all of it now, but it's taken me quite a long time to get there. Saying that, I still have a bit of a visceral reaction when it comes to viewing some corporate behaviours that we see in some of our clients sometimes. But then we recognise we've made the decision to step out of that and support clients where we can parachute in and parachute out. So it was probably the lowest moment of my career, feeling that my only option was to leave and not have another job to go to. I think I literally was like, I'm going to go to Comic-Con in San Diego for that following week. And then I was on garden leave for like 2 months afterwards.
Yeah.
And then that was it.
Yeah.
No more money, But now I look back and I think, well, do you know what? I've just got another tool in the toolkit. It feels uncomfortable. Yeah. I could have done things differently. It helped me learn more about who I was as a person. And it just kind of, it gives you more skills to deal with that kind of person next time as well. Yeah. So it's a bit of a negative, but actually what it's given me is another tool in my toolkit.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. That's a very deeply personal story. And I do appreciate that. That's very kind of you to share.
I told you I was an oversharer.
No. It's great. It's great because I think we've all been in a position where maybe not to that extent, but we've all probably exited companies not in the best way, and we might have exited in a good way. But there's always those points. So it's really useful to have someone like yourself who's hugely experienced and share that, so that if you are listening to this and you've gone through something quite difficult, that hey, if Erica can do it and can make a massive success of herself post something like that, then it's not the end of the world. But I also think, just picking up on something you said around when you do see behaviours that are toxic or negative in corporates, just calling that out. And I think that's really important. If you didn't have a reaction to it, if you just went, yeah, that's fine, a bit of bullying or whatever, I think that'd be far worse. But actually recognising, going, that's not right. That doesn't feel right. That's a human reaction.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the fact that you have a choice, we've always got a choice. And the amount of people that I hear say, but I don't have a choice because I've got bills to pay, I've got a family to look after, I've got mortgage to pay, or the rest of it. I get that. But like going back to our analogy around the pearly gates and life being tough, you don't want to look back and stay in a role that you hate or struggle to battle every day with a line manager that you don't want to connect with or you can't connect with. That's going to really drag you down in terms of your mental health and your energy and your life satisfaction and happiness. And that will be even worse on your family.
It's a mental prison.
Yeah, 100%. And you said at the beginning, Tom, about mindset. It's everything is about mindset, isn't it, in this life?
It's funny. I remember I had a conversation with someone previously, a couple of years ago, whatever it was, and we were talking about essentially a pretty negative workplace. And they said, I think I'm going to hang around. My wife's due a baby and whatever. And I said, mate, you can do it. But like me, and I think actually like yourself, Erica, and probably like a lot of the listeners, in L&D, we're quite doey. Like, we like to get stuff done. We don't generally sit there and go, oh, yeah, another day, done that. Yeah, great. We want to get stuff, we want to achieve stuff. And in that negative environment, you can survive for an amount of time. We've all got shelf lives. Like, let's say mine is 8 months, yours is 10 months, whatever. But you can't go beyond it because the mental load that is on you is just too much. Yeah. It's not healthy.
Yeah. And it starts to bring out the worst in you, and you take that out on your friends or your family or yourself or whatever. It's just, you can't live like that.
No, it's better to go somewhere where you've got a place. All right. On a much lighter note, because you've mentioned Comic-Con a few times, I'm expecting an amazing answer to this question. But what's your best celebrity story?
So I've been lucky to meet quite a few fairly A-class celebrities because of, if you go to Comic-Con, whether that's in the UK, in the US, around the world, it's quite a big thing now, isn't it? You do get to meet your heroes. You get to see these people face to face. I've met the cast of Red Dwarf, for example, at Wales Comic Con. Love Quality. Red Dwarf. Grew up on it. Yeah, amazing. I've got to meet some of the characters from Star Trek. I'm a bit geeky with that, but the big one for me is I'm a massive Marvel Cinematic Universe character fan. I love the characters. Fell in love with Tom Hiddleston as soon as he walked on the stage as Loki when he came out, in Thor, as him and Samuel Jackson are having a standoff and he's looking for the Tesseract and all that kind of stuff. And I was lucky enough to go to San Diego Comic-Con. There was a small group of Brits that used to meet there every July. We called ourselves the British Invasion. And the Thursday in Comic-Con was the big Marvel Hall H where you camp overnight and you go in, and that's where the big panels like Warner Brothers and Marvel and Disney and people like that. And all the A-class, actors would come on stage and preview the next Avengers movie or whatever it was. And I can't remember which year it was, but there was one year where Tom Hiddleston came out dressed as Loki. So there's 6,000 people in Hall H, and suddenly the lights go down. They pretend that there's a power cut or whatever. And suddenly you hear Tom Hiddleston as Loki say to 6,000 people in Hall H, humanity, look how far you've fallen. And it just gives me goosebumps.
I was going to say, does it make the hairs
now.
on the back of your neck stand up?
Totally, yeah. I think it was obviously introducing the next stage of the Marvel cinematic, the Avengers phase, whatever it was. Anyway, long story short, fly from San Diego airport back to Heathrow on the Sunday night. And I'm one of the first to get off the plane. And of course, business class and first class get off first. And then, of course, us in cattle class get off later. And I'm walking to this carousel in Heathrow, and there's not many people there. And I look up, and there's Tom Hiddleston, Mark Gatiss, Stephen, I can't remember his name, who wrote Doctor Who, and somebody else just stood there, nobody around them, at the baggage carousel waiting for their bags. And I'm like, oh my God, it's Tom Hiddleston. Like proper geeky, like fangirling. And because he's got his dark black hair that he's dyed from his Loki costume. And of course, I'm still buzzing off his Loki ad hoc performance in Hall H. And I walked straight up to him. And I said, hi, Tom. And he said, hello. I said, I loved your Loki in Hall H. It was incredible, like proper fangirling. And he turns around like the gentleman that he is. And he went, was it okay? Did you enjoy it? And I was like, it was amazing. Like I was honestly, I just freaked out. I was just like he's probably used to it. And then he says, would you like a photo? And I'm like that. Like, don't have to ask me that again. I was going to use some swear words then. And then I've got this amazing photo of me, Mark Gatiss and Tom Hiddleston at Heathrow Airport after having a chat with him about Loki, my favourite character in the MCU. And I can remember like it was yesterday. Yeah. And it was just one of those moments where sometimes people meet celebrities and they're like, oh, you should never meet your hero because of some of their behaviours. Tom Hiddleston's always been kind of like a bit like a Patrick Stewart, kind of an English gentleman, right? And the way he was so kind to me and had time for me and asked for my opinion and then offered a photo and didn't want to push me away, didn't want to rush me, didn't feel threatened that I was kind of excited and fangirling and whatever, just dealt with me like an absolute true British gentleman. So that's, I've met quite a lot of celebrities, but that's my core.
That's so good.
That was the moment.
And how long until your feet touch the ground again?
Oh, days, weeks probably.
Amazing. So good.
I get you can see I get excited now talking about it. And this was years ago.
No, it's brilliant. I had a similar experience when I was at Gatwick. I saw Bob Holness waiting to pick up his daughter. I didn't go and ask him for any letters or anything. So yeah.
He didn't ask for a pee, please, which I bet gets all the time.
Brilliant. Yeah, love it. That's such a nice story because it's got such a human element to it. It's very nice. I think probably most people will now know that you are a massive fan of Comic-Con. What is one thing that people don't know about you?
I am a massive oversharer, so there's not a lot, to be honest. When I was at uni, so I think this was probably around 99, 2000, I decided randomly to apply for Big Brother.
Oh.
And it was the time where you had to film a 5-minute video of something interesting about yourself and literally send the VHS in a packet to Channel 4 or whoever it was running it at the time. And I randomly got called for selection. So I went down to Birmingham and there was a 2-stage process where obviously the producers were sat around 20 people in this room trying to pick out the characters. And it was like a group discussion type thing, and which I ended up facilitating, surprise, surprise. And then people were selected out of that group to then be shortlisted for the afternoon for a screen test. And I got shortlisted for the screen test. So I think overall, it was the year that Kate Lawler won it.
Oh.
And I think I got down to the last 150 people. Bearing in mind, hundreds of thousands of people were applying for Big Brother at this stage. And I didn't get any further, but somewhere in the Channel 4 vaults, there's a screen test of me, like you see at the start of Big Brother, the live kickoff show, talking about me and why I would make a great housemate and things like that.
Yeah, beautiful. So, there's a bit of you at Channel 4.
Now, I'm kind of glad I didn't get onto Big Brother, because we know that if you're not Alison Hammond, you didn't really get a career out of it.
Well, exactly. So, but think of the sliding doors moment. What would have happened to you if you had ended up on Big Brother? I can't help but feel like you might have got a bit more messed up being on Big Brother, because it wasn't.
Well, exactly.
It wasn't positive, was it?
No. My dad always said to me, I'm so glad you didn't get onto that show. And as part of the application process, I remember we had to fill out this kind of almost mitigation of who would come to the papers and say what would your ex-boyfriend say? Is there any incriminating photos? Is there anything you wouldn't want the public to see? And you literally, I mean, I don't think there was, to be honest, but there was literally, you had to put your whole life into this document so Channel 4 would be prepared if anybody went to the media about you and things like that.
Amazing. Before I ask you one last serious question, I meant to ask you this earlier. I was just thinking this through. What's your favourite Star Trek captain?
Captain? Yeah. Oh, okay. I think Janeway.
Really?
From Voyager.
Jean-Luc. Not.
I love Patrick Stewart, and I grew up on Next Generation. Don't get me wrong. I think I love his first officers and his directs, in Next Generation. It's that dynamic of almost that senior team, where you've got Riker as the first officer, who's a bit of a suave man, and then you've got Data,
sleazy.
The android.
I'd say he's a little bit like an American Roger Moore. There's that kind of sleazy element to Riker. That's what I would say.
There is a little bit, yeah. He's always got the girls type thing, isn't he? Yeah. But I think Janeway, because I guess the feminist in me is the first female captain. I love the story arc in regards to how they, spoilers, get back to the Alpha Quadrant at the end and fight the Borg and stuff like that. I just love how cool, calm and collected she is. And like me, she's addicted to coffee. So, I think the feminist in me would say Janeway.
Yeah, nice. Yeah.
How about you?
Oh, I'd go for the classically trained Royal Shakespeare Company, Patrick Stewart, surely.
Yeah.
I mean, like you, that's what was on TV when I was growing up. So,
and I could sit and binge all that stuff now. Do you know?
Really? Well, no, I find it hard to rewatch it because it feels a little bit dated. Although, having said that, I do quite. This isn't sci-fi. I quite like a Columbo. I'm just going to put it out there. A classic Columbo episode. It's just still great. Okay, all right. Look, one last question. I feel like this could be a book if I take everyone's best advice. But what is your best advice for others in the L&D industry?
I've been asked that a couple of times recently, and I think I keep coming back to, it's not about sticking your head above the parapet, because that obviously depends on so many other things like culture and psychological safety and your confidence and all that stuff. Like, when it comes to things like AI, and this isn't just AI specific, but AI is shining a light on it, you have to be in that space where you've got an experimental mindset. We can't just keep doing what we've always done and expect a different result. Like, that's not going to serve us anymore, whether that's skills, whether that's mindset, whether that's how we've run projects in the past. We got to get our head out of our asses when it comes to L&D, and we've got to be architects of change. And that is around testing and learning, visible quick wins for stakeholders. Because if you don't do this stuff, all these cottage industries in your organisation are going to pop up anyway. And it's a real missed opportunity if you're not there leading the charge. And I don't want to do the whole L&D needs a seat at the table and, all that kind of stuff. I subscribe to that, don't get me wrong. But there's really small, quick wins that you can start using with AI, even if it's just like a transcription from a meeting or a training session that you then analyse on Zoom for some certain types of behaviours or something like that. Like, just start using these little things. And I write about this in the book, actually. Shameless plug on the book, AI for People Professionals.
So it's out May 3rd?
May 3rd. Pre-order now on koganpage.com.
It's on Kogan. Okay, yep.
And Amazon. But you've got to be that agent of change that's looking at that agile way of thinking, like, incrementally, how do we test? How do we change? How do we learn? How do we unlearn? What's worked? What hasn't worked? We can't use these big waterfall project plans that we used to.
Yeah,
and
totally.
These 12-month training programs. We've got to get real in terms of what our role is. And that starts with that experimental mindset.
Beautiful. I love it. Great advice, especially topical and relevant at the moment. It has been for a while, but it's really relevant now. Thank you. Thank you so much, Erica. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your wonderful stories and for your sharing. Really appreciate it. So, yes, thank you very much.
Thank you for a wonderful conversation on the other side of the world. I really appreciate it.
Thank you to our guest and to you for listening. If you want to boost the impact of your organisation's people development practices, I'd love to connect. You can find me at thomasbailey.co. Alternatively, you can look me up on LinkedIn.